Welcome everybody out to episode 84 of Utah in the Weeds, and a big shout out and welcome to 2022, right? Here we are. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode. We got it out a little bit late. The year in review, the 2021 year in review. If you missed that, go back and listen to it. It was, I think, released on the 3rd of January. We'll be back after this episode. We'll try to be back to this Friday episode release every Friday at 4:20 a.m. Coming to you from Utah here. My name is Tim Pickett. I'm the host of Utah in the Weeds, and I'm looking forward to this entire year because there's so much good that has been happening in the cannabis space and in the medical space from my perspective over the past couple of years since the program started. And I hope to outline some of that in 2022. Today's guest is Shawn Hammond. Shawn Hammond is a good friend of mine. You may know him. You may have listened to the episode before when we had him on. He's the owner and partner in Proper Hemp and Proper Cannabis Company. Proper is a company that's been around for a little while. You may have seen it in Utah. You may not have. It's in multiple states. They've been doing CBD products and hemp products for a while, and they've come to Utah. Shawn's brought that to Utah to develop cannabis products or THC products for the medical market. And we talk a lot about his nano-emulsification process. He's really into bioavailability, which just means the absorption of the product into the human body. And he's also into strong products. I like that about him. We talk a little bit about weightlifting too, so stay tuned for that at the end there. And I think you're going to enjoy this episode. From a housekeeping perspective, what to look forward to over the next few months. You know, the legislative session is coming up, and you know, there's a couple of things that we are really focused on this year to try to get changed with the program. And one of them is covering for other providers that are in the same group, right? Covering for other providers that are in the same group, so I can see my partner's patients when my partner's out of town or sick or gone or moves out of state even. And then the other thing is this patient caps. You know, patients should, I believe, have a choice of who they see. I think that's becoming more and more evident. People are migrating to the folks that they want to take care of them. Just like normal medicine, you get to choose your own doctor. You get to choose your own PA. Why not in the medical cannabis space, right? So look forward to episodes with, hopefully we'll get Rich Oborn back on from the Department of Health. We'll talk to the advocacy groups. We'll talk to some pharmacists. I want to bring on some pharmacists from Wholesome Co. And last but not least, before we get into this episode, I want to update you on our subsidy program, Uplift. So Uplift launched in December 2021. It is now the largest subsidy program that I know of in the state of Utah for medical cannabis patients. We are going to be able to see 22 patients in January for free or reduced cost. These are low-income and terminally ill patients. You can find out more about that at utahmarijuana.org/uplift. Again, largest subsidy program in Utah for medical cannabis. I think this is what I would consider finally a good subsidy program that is transparent, that is clear for the requirements to be approved for the system, and has the ability to scale and see, hopefully, as many patients as need to be seen who are low income, terminally ill here in Utah. So check that out. Utah in the Weeds. Download it on any podcast player that you have. My name's Tim Pickett. Enjoy this episode and interview with Shawn Hammond. Okay, first of all, we're in Salt Lake. We're at the Proper Cannabis Co. headquarters. Is that what we call this? What is this place?
We're at, call it Proper HQ, right? Because we've got multiple companies under Proper, and We've got a lab, medical cannabis processing lab here in the state. We can't touch any THC here at this spot. So
okay, will that change?
No. No, this is zoned for hemp processing, but it's across the street's okay to be a medical cannabis processor, but right here it's not.
What the?
Yeah, but that's fine. No, we're working with another, license holder to be able to do our processing there.
Okay, so talk about that for a minute, because you were with Zion as the grower.
So yeah,
you're
should
now,
we just back up?
Yeah, I mean, okay. I mean, I feel like we should, because people know you from Zion Farmer and the social handle, and we had a podcast before, and you were involved with Zion. So not as much as you want to get into that or not, how'd you get from there to here?
Yeah, well, yeah, let's back up and give a little history. I think on our first podcast, I gave a brief history on how I got into the space. But in 2017, when my partner, Mike Madsen, and I were leaving the Oregon rec market, we decided to focus on hemp. So we started Proper Hemp Co. The Oregon market early on got really saturated with cultivators. We talked about that.
It's still saturated with
still,
cultivators.
Yeah,
I mean, you can buy an
man, I
ounce
guess
up
it
there,
hasn't changed so much, right? They've got a moratorium right now on new licenses.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they needed it a long time ago. So we decided to focus on the medical side of the hemp plant. My experience growing up in Oregon allowed me to understand the value of CBD. That's where I really first learned about it, because the grower that one of my main growers there, she had an inoperable brain tumor that she medicated. It caused her to have seizures. Back up. So she had seizures associated with her brain tumor, and she was all the way off of her pharmaceutical drugs and simply controlled her seizures with a high CBD strain of cannabis. So that was my first real close experience. So I wanted to understand more about that. And so I started learning more about the medical side. CBD was newer at that time. Some people had heard of it. Most of them hadn't. The Farm Bill still had not been passed, but it looked like it was going to. So we thought it was a good time to pivot into the hemp space and take our brand national. So we focused on building a national brand, Proper Hemp Co. We were in early. We were really a science-based company that focused on high-end delivery systems, maximizing cannabinoid absorption in the body, and launched, and so did everyone else in the U.S., I think, too.
Yeah,
about
that
2 years
sounds
later.
Like the same time, right? Just as the boom was happening.
Yeah, in 2018, when the Farm Bill happened, a bunch of people jumped in. You had farmers jumping in. You had brands jumping in into a new market. And then, it got oversaturated and COVID happened. And now, at one point, I think they were tracking over 5,000 CBD brands. And now I think over 3,000 have fallen out. So the industry will stabilize, but that was our background. And when licensing came available in Utah, when Prop 2 passed, we wanted to apply for a cultivation license.
Well, you knew what you were doing. They needed Utahns who knew what they were doing at the time, right?
That was my thought. I was looking at some other opportunities out of state, in fact, out of the country, but I traveled quite a bit and just really wanted to stay in state. So I put in a cultivation license with the idea of being able to bring proper cannabis here to Utah, and that's the THC side. We didn't get awarded a license, and still wanted to try to participate in the Utah market. We wanted to try to get a deal with one of the cultivators or processors to bring proper here. And that didn't work out at the time, which it's fine, because things work out or don't for a reason a lot of times, right? But I did end up working with Zion and was excited to go work in the cannabis space here in Utah, and took a position with them to oversee and run their cultivation operation. And that was an awesome experience to be able to get in here and design and build and be part of creating a new industry, medical space. I love cultivating flower. I love smoking flower, vaping, whatever.
Right, whatever the term is
whatever
right
state I'm in depends on.
It depends on the state you're in. Yes.
But about just over 6 months ago, decided to get back to my dream or idea of really bringing proper cannabis here to Utah. We developed a lot of really cool products with Proper Hemp. Industry leading, award winning. We got written up in magazines. We've been in Women's Health, and we've got awards sitting there behind you that for our branding. So we learned a lot about our customers because we had a broad customer base, and we took really meticulous data sets on conditions and what people were using our products for. And then of course we have the data of which products we're selling. And we had a large catalog, 20 something SKUs.
Yeah.
But we really understand the main things that were driving customers to us. Sleep was a big thing.
Yep.
Pain, anxiety, or mental health. Those were kind of really the main three things.
I mean, it seems like when you're talking about the hemp side, the CBD side, those are the
same ones that people
health, pain,
for cannabis, for
and
medical
that translates,
cannabis.
You're right. I mean, it just translates right over to the THC side.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The thing, I mean, I really liked those. You had some curcumin soft gels, and I was taking them. I remember we were lifting, and I would hurt my back, and I was loading up on those things because they helped.
Yeah, they were, they were based on this high-end delivery system that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, talk about that now. Like that seems like to be your proper thing.
Yeah, so Proper Cannabis, we really we took a science-based approach. Initially in the CBD market, there were a lot of really bad products out there, mislabeled. For one thing, and that's a whole different category. But even let's talk about products that were labeled and formulated correctly. It started out in the industry with CBD isolate, which the bioavailability is incredibly poor. Not only is the bioavailability poor, the effects are nowhere near what, say, a full spectrum CBD or would provide.
Two things there. Bioavailability is how good your body absorbs a medication or substance. And so, for example, the bioavailability of an IV drug is almost 100% because you put it right into the system. But the bioavailability of a drug you take orally can vary so widely.
Sure.
Like,
right.
So
is it going
widely.
through first pass metabolisms?
And it's not really tested in the hemp side, right? Like in the normal drug side in Western pharmaceutical medicine, you take the drug, they test your blood. When you take the drug, then they test your blood at 15 minutes,
values,
30 minutes. Yeah, all these values of bioavailability. And that's not done hardly. I don't know.
Not by most.
Not by most, right?
That's right. But we employed a high end. Well, let's back up. Let's talk about the difference between isolate and
because the
full
second
spectrum.
thing I was going to talk about was isolating, and we have this in THC too, right? You have isolate, you have distillate, explain that for us.
So, man, I kind of want to get into like a history of modern medicine. But before I do that,
we have all day. We
do that. Let me just
two podcasts.
Keep it real simple. So science likes to take a compound and isolate the molecule that provides a specific response.
Yeah,
right?
that is how our medical
system
our medical system works.
Okay.
Aspirin,
often
ibuprofen.
That is not the best delivery system, because I'll go into plant medicine in a little bit after this, but most of these isolated medicines that your pharmaceutical companies are slightly altered molecules of natural plant medicine. Okay.
Yeah.
But the plant,
aspirin's a good example.
the plant,
it was white willow bark.
Exactly.
Right. And then we just made it into aspirin.
Correct.
Van Gogh, he used to be drinking dandelion tea as a diuretic, and that's what made the halos for the starry, starry night.
See?
Right?
Plant medicine.
Yeah,
that
plant
was
medicine is the thing.
And we've gotten away from that. And what we've found, like, let's just keep it specific to cannabinoids. An isolated cannabinoid, particularly CBD is what we're talking about, does not provide the same benefit, overall absorption, or experiential benefit as a broad or full spectrum, meaning a distillate that has other cannabinoids and terpenes and flavonoids.
Even if it's residue. I mean, I would say even if it's residue from the other cannabinoids,
it's
and
a small amount makes a really big difference, right? So they found out that, okay, and it's called the entourage effect. I mean, this is easy science. Most people listening probably are aware of what the entourage effect is. And you don't get that with an isolate, but you do with full spectrum or broad spectrum. Still, you're limited on bioavailability. It's a very thick oil, right? CBD, and your body has a hard time absorbing that. So we sought out companies that were doing interesting things in the space, and quite frankly, that were drug delivery companies for the pharmaceutical industry. So we started working with a group that had been doing some really cool research, and we licensed and their process, which is patented, to apply to the cannabinoids. And what that does is, first of all, it makes it, number one, water soluble. And what we create in our lab with the cannabinoids is called a self-assembling colloidal solution. Fancy words, meaning that you're creating when it hits our I don't want to get too sciencey, but when our SDDS hits an aqueous phase,
basically when you drop that shit into the water, right?
it will become water soluble. And I showed,
we were
Tim
downstairs, right?
Kind of an experiment.
Yeah, you dropped it into the water, and most oils, they go down and they'll separate a little, and then they kind of rise. They just sit on top. Kind of.
Right?
They go right back to the top. Yeah, they go right back to the top, and then they become oil. This is how I keep the noodles from boiling over. I spray some oil in the top of the pot.
Right.
It stays in the top.
When you take a cannabinoid, which is an oil-based, and you take an oil-based delivery system like MCT, which is common, it's not water soluble, and it's not the most bioavailable. What we do is we create a product that just break it down to the science. It's water soluble. It stabilizes at under 50 nanometers, and there's published studies in Molecule Magazine, which I was showing you a little bit earlier, that show that the comparison between an MCT-based delivery system versus the self-assembling colloidal solution delivery system results in 4.4 times greater absorption in blood plasma levels.
Yeah, then when you were dropping it in the water solution, it doesn't go back up to the top, and you didn't even have to spin it. You did spin it to make the point, I think, but really it just hangs out all over the water solution.
A colloidal solution is a solution that can't be broken down, right? So it took that entire vessel of water and it distributed the cannabinoids completely evenly, and it will not separate because now it's
what
colloidal.
You're saying is you're not making coffee. You're not changing the water into the cannabinoid solution. You're breaking down those. You're essentially breaking down those to the smallest point you can so that they absorb into
your body. What's your body made of?
As fast as
water, right?
As fast and as consistent as possible.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Which is really what we need. I talked to a patient today. The biggest problem they're having is consistency with the edibles.
edibles are a challenge, man. They really are a challenge. And it's kind of a funny drug delivery system for a medical market, if you think about it. I don't eat sugar.
No, there's so much more now. We were thinking about doing it, and it's the new year, right? We're thinking about doing the whole 30. And I was thinking, man, how are you gonna do that? There's all the sugar and all these additives and all these gummies. So you're gonna have to switch the delivery method, I guess.
Yeah, and that's what we've developed with Proper Cannabis is alternative delivery methods based on what we learned and what we got feedback from our patients in Proper Hemp. So those curcumin soft gels, our Proper Relief soft gels, they're nano-emulsified. So they have that technology applied, which is why you can feel them. They work. Yeah. And they absorb into your body and they do it quickly and they last effectively longer. The relief is
when you
longer.
talk about they absorb quicker, so you're going to get 4.4, and we were looking at the graphs. I mean, based on this article and this research, it's going to absorb into the body at over 4 times greater bioavailability. So essentially, if we switch over to this THC stuff that you're making now, that's going to drop. And when is it? When are we thinking that this stuff's going to be available in Utah?
So we're gonna be launching new products all throughout 2022. So our first product that's coming to market is just a straight THC tincture. The next product that's just awaiting testing is a tincture formulated to help with sleep. And then we've got 2 topicals that are based on our nano-emulsion formulas that we're going to be introducing, hopefully January, again,
if everything
testing
goes,
is, it takes a
right?
minute.
And remind me to bring back up the barriers to entry to bring a product to market as a non-grower.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
As one thing when you had access to that grow, but now Proper is not a grower.
No.
Okay, but finishing on with this bioavailability, are you
so
going to have a tincture?
And then we're going to be working on bringing products based on our Proper soft gel or our hemp-based soft gels to the THC market. So yeah, it's going to be we've already developed them, and we've developed them. We've got to get the ability to manufacture them at a little bit more scale, right? Yeah,
instead of filling every single capsule yourself and banding it yourself,
there's a lot that goes into the delivery system, but the technology's been developed, and we're excited to get it launched. The first product, like I said, I don't really eat sugar, so edibles have not really been my thing. But we're bringing a high strength straight Delta 9 tincture to the market. That's going to provide similar or better results than a lot of your edibles.
But high strength, most of the tinctures out in Utah are 250 milligrams per bottle.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to be in your bottle?
We attempted to launch at 1,500 milligrams per bottle. Test results came at 1,750, which again, I can. Yeah.
Do you think
Utah testing is interesting?
Should we go back to the Cody James podcast I just released last month? Yeah, it's okay, Cody. We don't hate you, but a couple of times now your tests have come back a little high, maybe.
Well, and it's not, and it wasn't him. There's other labs in the state, but
we're just it's like Fauci.
It's interesting. So when you're formulating, you've got to have accurate data because all of your data is based on potency and, the amount of milligrams per gram of your source material. So you do all of your math and formulations based on your source
material.
And if, a C of A comes back saying your source material is at 75% THC, you formulate based on that percentage. Well, if that distillate happens to be 85% THC because your initial test was wrong, now your formulation has more.
Has those
the first batch
differences, not necessarily errors. We're just going to say those differences are going to translate all the way down the
and it's funny math because it's like, listen, here's the amount of liters used, which you can see, and here's the here's the math.
Yeah,
I did not
that's all just
generate
chemistry and physics.
190,000 extra grams of THC
Sure.
in my formulation process, but
But
anyway,
either
so
way, this is
bottom
all,
line, no, this is high strength. I mean, a lot of medical patients need a high dose,
well,
right?
and the other thing is, I mean, it's probably going to be a pretty good value too, because
That's the idea. We're formulating it, and we don't have control over what pharmacies price products at. I mean,
right, you can
growers
sell it
don't have it,
but
processors don't. We intend, we could have a manufacturer's recommended sale price, MSRP or whatever, and we would like these to hit the market for $125.
I mean, you're putting
and
it out there,
and
right?
we're pricing to allow that, because it's a lot of medical patients really do require high dose, and that gets expensive. It gets cost
The
prohibitive.
consistency too. If you want patients, and I talk about this a lot to patients in reducing their inhaled products, just in general, right? Because we're seeing more younger patients use a lot of cannabis. And so to me, if I can reduce the amount of inhalation that a patient does over their lifetime by 20%, that's a lot of inflammation that we reduce, and potential damage. Because there's plenty of research on smoking weed, but there's not a lot of research on long-term vaping. And who knows? Maybe there's another chemical in there that over time will be you want less of.
Yeah, you hear that,
right?
Department of Health, joints are best, right? No.
Right? So you've got this. We talk about microdosing tinctures and then adding inhaled on top of it. And your tincture would be ideal, right? Because you basically have
you
the
can take whatever
Delta-9.
dose you want. It's
Sure,
a value-based product that's
Yeah.
high quality. All of our products are high quality.
And it doesn't melt together in the bottle.
Right?
Right.
And it's designed so one dropper full is 50 milligrams. So, I don't know, maybe you're a 12 milligram person. Well, you take a quarter dropper full, right?
Yeah.
Or it allows you to really kind of maintain that dosing protocol.
And if it's absorbing faster and it's more bioavailable than the competing or the other products, and you can get it 10 minutes earlier, right? You can get that effect 10 minutes earlier. Why wouldn't you want that, right? You take it to have the effect.
And I do want to clarify, just, the initial tinctures that we're putting out, they are not our nano-emulsified products, but they're a higher strength and formulated for condition. The nano-emulsified products will be dropping later January, February, March.
And those are going to be
those are the ones that have the 4x absorption.
Got it.
Plus. So
I mean,
these
really
are
a lot to look forward to.
Oh yeah. Kind of the idea, I mean, a lot of people, if you let's say you smoke a vape your flower in the morning, right? Well, a lot of people don't have time or the ability to vape all day,
right,
until they get back from work or whatever it may be. This provides kind of that, all day predictable help.
Yep.
To when all of a sudden, maybe you're not high, but you're thinking, oh, I'm not thinking about smoking.
Right.
Joint.
And I'm not thinking about my pain.
Yeah.
And those two things, you're home free, and you don't. And then there's the smell, and really there's still a stigma around the smell of the flower.
So we're excited to get that launched. And I mentioned we formulate for conditions, right? We don't formulate just to get you high. We formulate for conditions. And one of the biggest things that we've talked about is sleep, right? So many people take edibles for sleep. Most people won't take an edible during the day because of the waves that it comes in, the kind of unpredictability. And then when it wears off, you crash out, right? And you want to go to sleep. So a lot of people end up taking their edibles at night. We understand that, and we developed a tincture that's, designed to help you fall asleep. It's not designed to get you high, and that it won't. It's gonna, if you take it during the day, it's gonna put you down. You're gonna want to take a nap. And it's formulated with 1,000 milligrams of THC, 1,000 milligrams of CBD, 200 milligrams of CBN, valerian root, lavender, and getting back to that natural plant medicine. And it helps you sleep. There's no doubt. We're really excited to get that one launched because we know it's going to serve a large number of patients.
How is it possible? I'm sitting here thinking about formulating these products and how you're going about formulating these products. And maybe you don't even want to answer this because I can imagine that this is pretty hard. But how do you go about formulating a product and testing it in Utah when you can't have THC?
Yeah, you can't. I mean, it's a problem. And
right? You've essentially got to be a patient. If we're going to brainstorm this, we've got to be a patient.
Let me walk through what I would have to do to test my product in the market, right? So,
or on your own while you're formulating.
Well, you can't.
Even, right?
There's no mechanism inside the law. See, when with Proper Hemp, and the good thing is I have base formulations that I've developed
that
here.
You can go from.
So
I
have.
So how much 10 milligrams of Delta-9 makes people feel like, okay, that makes some sense. But formulating a CBN, valerian root, lavender product, and then having people try it and test it and make sure that you can get all the materials.
You would have to be doing that out of state, right?
Yeah,
you'd have to be doing beta testing out of state.
Out of state.
So
but out of state, you're not going to have a license out of state to have it and to do the testing either.
No, but we can work in someone's lab there.
You could work in somebody's lab. You see how these little things, I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but I want to point out that we don't think a lot about these little hiccups that are real problems for people.
So I can tell you how
these businesses.
How we've also looked at addressing this. I mean, this is a problem, right?
Right.
So we're going to be, I'll just announce it here. I'm going to be doing a beta test program for my followers for each product release that we do. So prior to releasing, we want to allow and get a bit of a database on patients here in Utah that want to be beta testers for us.
For a product.
Mm-hmm.
So you got a new formulation.
So yeah, I'm going to put this out on my Instagram and there will be a link where if you want to sign up as a beta tester, go to this link and let us know what your conditions are. There's a little short questionnaire that you'll fill out. Mm-hmm. And from there we can see, okay, patient A is taking cannabis in this delivery form for these conditions. I think they would be a good fit to beta test this product, right? If you've got insomnia, that's your primary reason for utilizing cannabis. Okay, well, let's have you beta test our sleep product. Then you can give us your feedback on taste and texture and experience. So the cool thing about being a small little craft brand like this is, we've got the ability to move and shake and do that type of thing. So we want to get that feedback and we will, if we need to alter our formulas, we can do it based on feedback of patients, or if we need to create new formulas. So that's kind of how we're trying to address it. And the idea being, okay, you signed up as a beta tester, go to this pharmacy here and you can go pick up your deeply, deeply discounted product.
And then your responsibility is to give us feedback.
You give us the feedback, and if you don't give us the feedback, then you're out of the program. You will never beta test for us again.
But I think that a lot of people would be very interested to do that, especially in a small market like Utah, where they could maybe make a difference on, wow, that sleep formulation was really strong. I was a little groggy in the morning when I took this much. Then essentially you could give the pharmacies, you could give QMPs. I mean, you could give the public, right? Here's a little bit of feedback on.
That's kind of the idea.
Yeah.
So there are challenges.
More of that type of stuff. But how do you even source? We talked about this a little bit before. Like, how do you even source your material? Because you have to work under you have a tier 2 license.
We're working under a tier 1.
You're working under a tier 1. So somebody could come in and so Proper Cannabis can come in, they can work under a tier 1, make an agreement with a tier 1 license holder, that's the one that you've got to pay $100,000 for the application, right?
Correct.
And then
you have to get material.
Well, then they have to get the material technically, but it's you paying for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. But you got to go.
Correct.
How do they do that? Because they're not the one. Not all of the processors are growers.
No, and it's a challenge. Utah, I mean, there are always unintended consequences, I think, when programs are devised and then administered.
Oh, the QMP program is like, I totally get it. I totally get it.
And
but from the grow, right? You decided on 10 licenses. You ended up issuing 8.
Yeah.
You then have an unlimited number of $100,000 licenses that can be purchased, right? And there's been, I don't know, a handful of those purchased. There's got to be 5, 6, don't you think? At least 5 or 6 of those. So now you have 13 to 15 companies who can process, but 8 of those can grow.
Yeah, so that's the challenge is if you're not vertical and you don't control the source material.
This is besides the fact that not all of those 8 have retail.
Yeah.
Right? There's only 2 or 3 that have 4.
3 or 4 now.
3 or 4
I think,
maybe
yeah.
now.
So it's a unique market, but I can tell you the price of raw materials, if you can get it, and for people that don't know how products are made, when flower is grown, if it's a high enough quality flower, then it should be sold as flower. But then you have a lot of residual material, your trim, which typically in most markets in most states, that's what you're utilizing to create distillate.
And trim is going to be the leaves.
Your sugar
not
leaf.
The main,
just the sugar leaf.
The sugar leaf, not the fan leaf.
You don't want the fan leaves. They don't have cannabinoids, but most of the trim here has fan leaves and everything, which ultimately reduces your total THC content by weight.
Do you think that's because this is kind of an opinion. I don't know. I mean, do you think that over time the trim will get better because they'll learn how to grow it better? Or do you think
a lot of it is not necessarily a function in growing, but in harvesting and processing, or part of it is growing because, if indoor, you're sways and you're de-leafing a lot, you're pulling off a lot of those big fan leaves that don't have cannabinoids.
Got it.
Outdoor, which is in greenhouse, you don't manicure as much, at least most here, because of the size or mass. Yeah. So they harvest the plant, chop it down, grind it up, and there's your biomass.
Got it.
But in most states, in most market, trim costs anywhere from $50 a pound to $150 for good trim, and that's, and in here, Utah, it can cost 10x that. So you start you can buy pounds of good flour in other states cheaper than you can buy trim here to process.
Okay.
And it requires a certain amount of weight of trim to produce a liter of distillate. So it's, so maybe one of the unintended consequences that gets slammed down to patients is the fact that if you're not vertical, you're buying really expensive trim or distillate to blow down just because it's the cost of goods sold, all the way up the chain.
Yeah. Do you feel like, and even if the legislature looks at a solution to this problem, increasing the number of growers, I'm sure would be one solution, allowing.
I think what they ought to do, here's just something to throw out, kick around. They won't. But, like you mentioned, they were going to do 8 licenses, or they were going to do 10, but they issued 8. Those were 100,000 square foot licenses. Take one of those next licenses, that 9th license, break it up into 10 or 20 licenses, little micro grows, little craft grows to allow, mom and pop or some other smaller companies to come in and do this,
and not do it at that big scale. Do it on a craft type thing.
You don't need 100,000. Not everyone needs 100,000 square feet. I'd be stoked. Have a 2,500 square foot of canopy.
Well, I don't think there's 800,000 square feet of cannabis being grown in Utah now. Not
No,
with
and if it is, it's
40,000.
mostly going to be outdoor, right? I mean,
Yeah,
so just
of
think of
course.
the logistics, the economics of it.
Yeah.
People, to build out indoor grow, it's really expensive
Mm-hmm.
for a small amount of square footage.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It would open things up for patients. It would allow smaller brands and other brands to come in to the market.
Yeah, with different motives. It's a really interesting idea. Definitely won't go anywhere.
Definitely won't go
right?
anywhere.
Like, I
but
don't
man,
think either
I'd
of
sure
you.
be
But
first
it's
in
a
line to
really great-
resubmit the same application I did 3 years ago because
Sure.
I called out all these problems in my application
about this type of
about the program.
Yeah, program.
In general. You know?
Yeah, when you try to force certain things, it's just and I mean, they'll probably admit it when they're doing it. I can't imagine they wouldn't be willing to admit, like, look, we're going to do the best we can now, and we don't know every single thing that this is going to bring up that's good and bad, but we think this is a good start, and here we go. Do I think that happened? Sure. I mean,
And I look at it from the state's point of view. Okay, we have to administer this program. It's a lot easier for us to administer eight
people
operations than
Yes.
40. It's okay.
In the beginning, definitely was a consideration, I'm sure.
But the unintended consequences are, source material costing 10x what it does
What it
other
might
markets.
in other markets. Yeah, and then that just really translates right to price.
Yeah, it has to.
There's no way around it. And because the initial cost of the tier licenses too.
Well, you've got processors that all spent millions of dollars,
Mm-hmm.
buying the license, getting the equipment to process. And, then unless they were awarded a cultivation license, now their, probably main job is trying to source material.
Yep. Yeah. Well, we've talked to them too. And it is the hardest. I guess it's the most consistent problem you have in Utah right now as a processor, which is getting source material. And maybe even Dragonfly and Wholesome would say the same thing. Their main problem is getting source material because they can't grow it fast enough.
I don't know. I think Dragonfly grew at like almost 50,000 pounds last year. That's a lot.
Yeah, and I went up to. I did visit a grow in northern Utah, and I don't know if I have permission to say the name of where I went, but there was 50,000 pounds of flower up there, getting ready to be turned into distillate.
Yeah.
So they're definitely growing a lot of.
Yeah, but they can turn their own flower and their own trim into distillate. Right?
Yeah, they were doing it right there in the room,
So that's the advantage, And if I was the state, I would probably, if I was going to open up cultivation, I'd probably open it up to tier one processors first,
mm-hmm.
so they could provide their own source. I mean, that doesn't help me because I don't have a tier one processor. But for fairness for the market to really kind of help.
Sure, they would be the quickest to market anyway.
I suppose it'll balance out. Free markets generally do, right?
So did this, back to talking about work, does this take a lot more time than it was growing?
Or
is it just
different? It was really busy initially getting things.
You were down there all the time.
Yeah. I mean, when you're managing a build out in a couple of different locations.
COVID times.
Yeah.
When COVID happened. When we were lifting weights and you were never there at the end because you were always driving all over the valley to build the grow out.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say I'm more busy. I'm just busy doing different things.
When was the last time you picked up a barbell?
2 months ago, probably.
And just to move it back on the rack or what?
That was pretty impressive, man. I don't know. My daughter posted a workout.
Your daughter posts some crazy workouts.
Yeah, she's really,
lifting
really
her
strong.
Brains out.
Yeah, she's a competitive weightlifting athlete, and she's strong.
Yeah,
yeah,
so. Yeah. Chloe's always like, I gotta get as strong as Mia.
Yeah, she just we do the Olympic weightlifting, but so people probably wouldn't relate to that, but my little 120-pound daughter just deadlifted 285 for max. I think
Yeah.
you're supposed to. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
Little
pretty-
girl.
right? Yeah. Olympic weightlifting. I have been so struggling trying to get some consistency, right? I can do 3 days in a week, and then it's 2 weeks before I
Well, and I
touch
shut down
anything
my
again.
gym, so now I don't have a place to go as easy.
It's harder to go when you don't have other people to go see. Even though the social aspect of the gym I feel like is made up by the lifter. Like if you go to the gym, tell me if I'm wrong. You go to the gym at the same time every day because you've got these people that you get to know at the gym, whether it's CrossFit or EOS, wherever you go, the Olympic gym. And you think, you get this in your subconscious mind that they expect you to come, right? That they're rooting
There's
for
accountability.
you. There's
right?
accountability. But that is legit made up, right? These people, they do care, but they don't. But that's not like the reason why they're going.
Now your
they're
coach
going
would
because
care.
they think you care.
Right. If you got a coach, and he's sitting there waiting for you at the gym.
That is, yes, you've added a whole nother layer to Olympic lifting specifically too. Don't get as much done without a coach in Olympic lifting.
Yeah.
So those of you out there who want to try a new sport, Olympic lifting, Shawn Hammond and Tim Pickett, our vote is you give it a try.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
No matter how old you are.
Oh, it's great for mobility and strength and all of that, especially for dudes our age. Even though you're a lot younger than me. I can't say our age.
Our age.
Okay.
It's
my
fine.
age.
It's fine. I feel so old. I mean, I started wearing readers. Okay, what's your favorite strain? We can wrap this up. What's your favorite strain right now? And I think you might have to say what's your favorite strain. What's your favorite Utah strain?
Oh, man. Well, I don't know. So I've been traveling and doing some work with some breeder friends.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing that, I've got to test a lot of new flavors that aren't out anywhere yet. So my favorite strain right now is Z Claire number 2 from Umami. Oh, that's fire. It's got some old school grape terps with some kind of creamy gas along with it. So yeah, I've been kind of helping doing some pheno hunting and testing and tasting outside of Utah.
Right, because that's where it has to be done. But fun. That just sounds like fun.
Yeah. And, I'd love to be able to grow some flower here in Utah again sometime. And we'll see if that happens or not. But if we do, man, we're going to have some incredible flavors. Absolutely proprietary, proper flower that won't be anyone else. We can always look forward to it. Yeah. It's exciting. But like I said, I'm excited just to be back in the Utah market, getting our brand launched. It's been a dream. We've been working on this. We came from the cannabis space. We developed our processes and companies and products in the hemp space, but we really wanted to get back into our original love, which is cannabis, and launching the brand Proper Cannabis Co here in the state. So
where is it located on social? Do you just want people to hook up with you with your social handle?
So I'm Proper Farmer.
Proper Farmer.
PROPERPHARMER. So Proper Farmer, and I'll be making some announcements and some posts and getting back active on Instagram. I haven't been active for 6 months or so.
Right, but it's time.
It's time. I just had my head down, working, grinding, trying to get things ready to go. Now they're ready to go. In 2022, we get to go pop off, man. We're excited.
All right. Well, Happy New Year. It's good talking to you.
Good to see you again, Tim.
Stay safe out there.
Peace.